By now, you must be feeling an overload of information about the line of actual control and the standoff in Ladakh between Indian and Chinese soldiers. But today I'm going to take you to extreme southeast of India, the Andaman and Nicobar Islands, which are like an oceanic outpost for a continental India. I am Nitin Gokhale. So you've heard of Andaman and Nicobar Islands. Of course, you know that they are a group of 572 small islands grouped together in two archipelagos. They extend about 450 kilometers north to south from the Coco Islands off the Myanmar coast down to Car Nicobar and Greater Nicobar near Indonesia. They are India's eastern outposts. They extend India's exclusive economic zone, more than 30% of which is contributed by these islands. And they are, of course, what is called an unsinkable aircraft carrier. Why are the Andaman and Nicobar Islands so important? They are important because they sit astride the 10-degree channel, one of the most important and busiest sea lanes of communication that carries maritime traffic between East Asia and Europe. China is dependent upon most of its supplies coming in and its exports going out from this channel, which connects the Indian Ocean through the Andaman Seas to Malacca Straits, and nearly 600,000 to about 100,000 ships go across the Malacca Straits, astride which the nearest island from the group of Andaman and Nicobar Islands is situated. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about the importance and of course the location of these islands. Now Andaman and Nicobar Island, capital of that group of islands is of course Port Blair. All of you are aware of it, I'm sure. It is very close to Indonesia towards its south. The Indira Point, as it is called, on that island in Car Nicobar is barely 250 kilometers from the Aceh province of Indonesia. In the north, if you go towards Myanmar, it is absolutely close to the Coco Islands. The Andaman and Nicobar Islands gives India a maritime boundary with 5 different nations: Myanmar, Bangladesh, Thailand, Indonesia and Malaysia. And of course, it is the island which is the home to India's only tri-service command, the Andaman and Nicobar Command, established in 2001. It has both economic and military importance for India's security. In a way, the Andaman and Nicobar Islands are a springboard to India's Look East policy that started in 1991 but has been erratic in its implementation. The Look East policy talks about increasing economic and maritime relationship with nations in Southeast Asia. And it is easy to do so if the Andaman and Nicobar Islands are developed according to a plan that has now been devised since June 2017. That month, the central government reconstituted the old Island Development Authority into what is now called Island Development Agency. The Home Minister of India, in today's context Amit Shah, is the chairman of the Island Development Agency. The vice chairman is retired Admiral D.K. Joshi, who was formerly India's Navy chief and is now a Lieutenant Governor of the Andaman and Nicobar Group of Islands. He has the executive powers as far as the Island Development Agency is concerned. The Island Development Agency includes many ministries and departments such as Home, Fisheries, Port Development, Environment, even tourism. They are now given the responsibility of developing not just the Andaman and Nicobar Islands but also the Lakshadweep Islands, which are on the western coast of India. But today we are only going to talk about the Andaman and Nicobar Islands. Now, that agency came up with a blueprint which is time bound, implementable, and has a comprehensive plan to develop the islands. It constitutes of three different things. One, improve and increase tourism in these islands, both ecotourism as well as luxury tourism, improve connectivity to Southeast Asia. There is a plan to improve the existing airfields starting from north to south at Diglipur, Port Blair, Campbell Bay and Great Nicobar or Car Nicobar Islands. These airports, which have a runway of about 1000 meters at the moment, are now being given a facelift, and the runways are being extended up to about 3200 meters, which is about 3.2 kilometers, enabling them to receive wide-bodied aircraft and more tourists as they come in from both Southeast Asia and from mainland India. Apart from that, several jetties along the coast, both east and west of the islands, are being upgraded to receive more cargo and more maritime traffic from different places. At Campbell Bay, there is a project to have a transshipment hub where ships going to and from Malacca Straits can actually unload and load cargo meant for either India or for other nations nearby. The other important plan is to have an optic fiber network which goes under the sea and connects mainland India to the Andaman and Nicobar Islands, giving them a better telecom connectivity, better broadband connectivity, and of course making it a hub for several other industries which want to be located in the maritime zone that Andaman and Nicobars represent. So these are all civil projects but can be used by the military when required. The Andaman and Nicobar Command, which I mentioned earlier, was set up in 2001. It has been sort of slightly neglected by India's military planners, but given the fact that Andaman and Nicobar Command sits astride the western flank of Malacca Straits, the Indian military planners are now looking at Andaman and Nicobar Command more critically and giving it more importance by establishing air bases, also naval air enclaves, as they have done at the Campbell Bay, where INS Bars is located, and of course improving surveillance of the maritime zone that India is fortunate to have access to because of these islands. Now, why are these important? I mentioned in the first instance that this is India's oceanic outpost in the east. Having control over the Andaman and Nicobar Command and Andaman and Nicobar Islands, India can actually mount great surveillance and has the ability, if need be, to choke the Malacca Straits or the traffic on the Malacca Straits if the balloon goes up against China. It's called a choke point in military terms. Whether that eventuality will arise or not, we do not know. But the fact is that Andaman and Nicobar Command and Andaman and Nicobar Islands give India the ability to choke an important sea line of communication. That itself is a kind of a deterrent as far as China is concerned. So if there is something happening on the line of actual control in the Himalayas, India can mount pressure on China if it wants in the seas, especially in the Malacca Straits, and which leads to South China Sea. But all that is during a very big conflict, a very bitter conflict. I do not know whether we are headed towards that kind of a conflict, but the fact is Indian government has over the past 5 years or so given more attention, more funds and more importance to both the civilian infrastructure in the Andaman and Nicobar Islands and is planning to upgrade the military infrastructure, military facilities and basing more assets, military assets in the Andaman and Nicobar Command. That itself is a heartening sign that India is now looking outwards towards the sea, both towards the Indian Ocean as well as to Southeast Asia. That's all I have this time. I will come back with more episodes of Simply Nitin, but don't forget to like us on our social media platforms, various handles. Keep sending feedback and of course suggestions. You're on Simply Nitin and I'm Nitin Gokhale.